Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another DFO Fantasy Show. It is Monday, December 29th. I'm your host, Brock Seguin, managing fantasy editor of dailyfaceoff.com. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday. On today's show, we'll go over the fantasy hockey news and notes. We'll get to Brock's lock of the day, and then we'll take a look at the Week 13 strength of schedule to identify the best streaming targets for this week. But let's kick it off with the news and notes. Jack Eichel will remain out on Monday, but he has not been ruled out to return on New Year's Eve, Wednesday's game versus the Nashville Predators. So Jack Eichel certainly getting close to a return. Luckily, he'll remain out for us because that is good news for Brock's lock of the day, which we'll get to in a moment. Next, Josh Morrissey missed practice on Sunday and is considered day-to-day. He was hit from behind by Joel Eriksson in Saturday's overtime loss. He's questionable to play Monday as well. Adam Fox, who has been out long-term with an upper body injury, was a full participant in Sunday's practice and has been upgraded to day-to-day. However, the Rangers would not commit to when he might return to lineup, although it looks like he is trending towards a return this week. Between the pipes, Darcy Kuemper was a full participant in Sunday's practice, but he is not expected to play on Monday. Expect Anton Forsberg to get the start. He's been very, very good since Darcy Kuemper went down with an injury. 2-2-0 with a 2.04 goals against average and a .932 save percentage in 4 starts. Linus Ullmark has taken a leave of absence from the Ottawa Senators for personal reasons. The Senators will now turn to Levi Merilainen as their number one netminder while Ullmark is away from the team. Shane Pinto sticking with the Senators. He's been sidelined since December 4th with a lower body injury, but is expected to return to the Senators lineup on Monday. Again, despite being out since early December, he is still third on the team in goals with 12. Matthew Tkachuk returned to practice on Sunday. He took part in a non-contact jersey. Obviously, that's the next step in him getting close to his season debut. But head coach Paul Maurice would not commit to him playing in the Winter Classic. That's kind of been the target date for Matthew Tkachuk, although Maurice was not ready to commit to him playing that soon. We shall see how that progresses in Florida. Next, William Nylander suffered a lower body injury on Saturday and missed Sunday's overtime loss in Detroit. He is considered day-to-day and questionable to play Tuesday versus the Devils. And lastly, let's get to Ryan McDonagh, who was placed on IR on Sunday and is considered a little more than day-to-day. McDonagh has dealt with injuries all season. He's already missed 20 games this season, so not great for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now let's get to Brock's lock of the day. This segment is a presentation of Betway. Join the action and download the Betway app. Create an account today and enjoy our sign-up bonus, 18 plus, and please play responsibly. So Rickard Rakell hit the over 2.5 shots on goal on our last show last Tuesday, bringing us to 4-1 in our last 5 and 21-14 on the season. We have a 10.7 ROI and we are up 4.6 units. Now let's bring up the prop model from our friends at 5v5 Hockey. And evidently I'm going a little bit rogue against the model tonight. If you're taking a look at the model here, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Mikael Granlund, Luke Evangelista, Mackie Samoskevich, and Ryan Leonard projecting as some of the best prop bets this evening. But I'm going to scroll pretty far down the list tonight where we will find Tomas Hertl of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, since Jack Eichel got hurt, I mentioned at the start of the show, it's really going to help our bet of the day. Hertl has hit this mark, over 2.5 shots on goal, in 4 of 5 games, while averaging an absolutely robust 3.8 shots on goal and 7.2 shot attempts. He's also played nearly 19.5 minutes per game. So with that kind of usage and that kind of attempt volume, I really like Hertl's chances to get over 3 shots on goal or 3+ shots on goal in Monday's game against the Wild. And this is a Wild team that while their goaltending is very good, they're not very good defensively. They give up the 2nd most shot attempts and the 9th most shots on goal over their last 10 games. So I really like Tomas Hertl over 2.5 shots on goal tonight at -130. As you can see, you can get that on Betway today. Over 2.5 -130 is Brock's lock of the day. Really good matchup. Really, really like what he's done since Jack Eichel got hurt. So that is Brock's lock of the day. Now let's get to the strength of schedule. We've got a team that plays 5 games this week, so very exciting. We'll get to the Carolina Hurricanes in a second, but a lot of games this week. It is a very busy week. The NHL lost 3 days due to the Christmas break, and then they are making up for it in short order here, just absolutely jamming games in here in week 13 of the fantasy hockey season, starting with the busy 11-game slate on Monday. But there are 5 teams that have 3 late night games this week: the Hurricanes, the Blackhawks, the Penguins, the Panthers, and the Montreal Canadiens. The Hurricanes have 5 games overall. It's probably going to be difficult to stream anybody on Saturday, but Monday you might be able to squeeze somebody in the 11 gamers. So I do think that the Hurricanes are the preferred target this week, just because you might be able to get 4 games out of them. You might also be able to get 4 games out of the Florida Panthers because they play all 4 games this week, and all of them come outside of Saturday. So if you've got room on your roster on Monday, you just might be able to squeeze 4 games out of the Panthers. Those are my 2 preferred targets this week. We'll get into the individual targets here in a moment. But I am going to just start by saying I'm just straight up crossing the Chicago Blackhawks off the list this week. The matchups, the Islanders, the Stars, and the Vegas Golden Knights, not terrible, not great either. No Bedard, no Frank Nazar. This team is struggling. There's not a lot of great options, and I just don't think it's worthwhile to stream anybody from Chicago just because they have 3 late night games. I would rather stream somebody with 2 late night games that you might be able to squeeze in your lineup on Monday to try to get 3 games out of them, as opposed to just forcing the Chicago Blackhawks stream. So we're really going to focus on 4 teams here: the Hurricanes, the Penguins, the Panthers, and the Montreal Canadiens. Let's start with the Hurricanes. As I mentioned, they are definitely my favorite. The only team on the schedule with 5 games this week, and 3 of them on light nights. And honestly, all 3 light night matchups are pretty streamer friendly. In Pittsburgh versus the Canadiens, and then in New Jersey. I like the schedule spread. And then obviously Monday against the Rangers is fine if you can get that extra game out of them. So the top priority for me is Jackson Blake. I talked about him last week, and he was on the top line with Sebastian Aho and also on the top power play unit. They did shuffle the lines around a little bit. He's now down to the second line, but still on that top power play unit, which is super important. And Blake is just a priority pickup and the number 1 pickup overall, for me this week. He stepped into a larger role since the Seth Jarvis injury, and he scored 2 goals in 3 games since taking on a little bit extra usage. And if you look at a wider sample size, he's posted 8 points, 5 goals, and 3 assists in his last 11 games, while averaging 4.3 shot attempts per night. So playing a lot, getting the puck on net a lot, or at least towards the net a lot, missing the net a little bit more than he normally does, but still the 4.3 shot attempts per night is really encouraging, and a sign that he's going to get a lot of volume this week and potentially continue to score goals. So he's currently locked into this top 6 role. He's on power play 1. He's averaging over 19 minutes per game. Those 3 things combined should make him basically a long-term hold right now, so long as Jarvis is out. I think he's more than just a streamer this week. I'm rostering him everywhere I can at the moment. And then obviously just with the strong schedule this week, Blake is just a great stream this week. If you're just focusing on the short term, I absolutely love this pickup. Logan Stankoven is next, and he was the one that got bumped up to the top line, knocked Blake down to the second line. He's also on power play 2. Obviously, I think we're mostly focused on the fact that he plays with Aho and Svechnikov at 5v5 right now. I think like the one thing that's really interesting to me, so on my league of record team, I had already had Blake on the team. He was already on my lineup, so I've got him for this week. So my stream spot this week actually is going to Logan Stankoven. And on that roster, even though it's an 11-game slate, all of my wing, all of my D slots were completely filled, but I had 1 spot open at center. So I'm actually going to get an extra game out of Stankoven this week and 1 fewer game from Jackson Blake. So I would really try to plan ahead and mostly just focus on Monday. You know you're going to get them in for the other 3 games, but mostly focus on Monday. And if you've got that center slot open, it might be worthwhile to stream Stankoven and get 4 games out of him versus Blake and maybe only get 3 games out of Blake. So just take a look at your lineup tonight. Not every team is going to be built the same. That team that I've got loaded at wing, my centers are a little weak, so that's kind of the reason why that spot became available. So it all depends on your roster construction, but just something to keep in mind. I like Blake more, but if you get the extra game out of Stankoven, I think it makes more sense just to stream him this week. So keep in mind. And to be honest with you, I would stream both of them like I already am if I could. They're the best options this week. We'll get to some other ones in a minute, but these are by far the best options. Stankoven has held onto his second line spot initially after the injury to Jarvis, but has been elevated to this line with Aho and Svechnikov, as I mentioned. He's been quiet recently, just 5 points in his last 11 games. But again, with the schedule the way that it is, I really like Stankoven. That line with Aho and Svechnikov should get stuff going this week. It's a very good 5v5 team. They should dominate pretty much every matchup. And Aho's had such a tremendous season that I think Stankoven riding shotgun with him is going to give him the opportunity to have a really big week. But if all things being equal, I would choose Blake first. Now let's move on to the Pittsburgh Penguins. I guess I should say while we're on the Hurricanes, like there are some other options here, right? Like Taylor Hall's fine. Doesn't play a tremendous amount of minutes. I think Eric Robinson's been hot as of late. I think you could, think about him, especially in banger formats. I would look at them. Obviously, banger. If you're looking for banger alone, I mean, Will Carey is a guy that's going to go out there and hit a ton. Jordan Stahl might make some sense. Still plays big minutes, and he's on the top power play unit. But Stankoven and Blake are so widely available. Blake at just 11% rostered, Stankoven at 21% rostered. I don't really think you need to dive too much deeper into the pool here. Now let's get to the Pittsburgh Penguins, where we'll start with just the matchups. The Penguins have some pretty good options this week. The late night matchups, though, are not ideal. So we'll go back to the schedule here for a second. They open with the Hurricanes on Tuesday. Obviously not great. Then they got the Red Wings on Thursday. The Red Wings are playing much better at 5v5. As of late, not the best matchup overall. They have a really good matchup in Columbus on Sunday, so kind of wishy-washy schedule for them. One really bad matchup, one kind of average matchup, and then one really good matchup there. Sorry, wrong team here. Let's get to the Penguins. So my primary option this week is Anthony Mantha. I talked about him a couple weeks ago, and he stayed hot with a goal and an assist in their 7-3 win over the Blackhawks yesterday. That gives him 11 points, 4 goals, and 7 assists in 13 games in December. Now, his ice time has dipped slightly in the last 2 games. The real reason why we liked him a week ago or 2 weeks ago was just the fact that he was playing so much. But I do think that though the dip in ice time there is a little bit more tied to score effects, right? They kind of got blown out 2 games ago and then did the blowing out of the Blackhawks yesterday. So I think that it might have a little bit more to do with that than an actual role change. Still in the middle 6 here. I think you can kind of argue which line is truly their second line. I think it's the Mantha, Novak, Brazeau line. You could say that it's the Kendall, McGroarty, and Koivunen line. Doesn't really matter. They're probably going to play pretty even amounts of ice time. The real kicker here for Anthony Mantha is the power play one time, and that's really why we liked him a couple weeks ago. It's why we continue to like him now. 4 of his 11 points in December have come on the man advantage, and it doesn't sound... Evgeny Malkin's been skating on his own, but it doesn't sound like he's particularly close. I don't think Malkin's going to be back this week. If he is, it's going to take away a lot of Mantha's value. So, again, another reason why the Hurricanes are the preferred option here. But with Mantha, really solid volume. 2.2 shots on goal is solid. 4.6 shot attempts is great per game. So, with this top power play unit spot, I think he's positioned very nicely to have a nice week. The problem just with the Penguins is, again, the schedule not being great. Some of the secondary options in Pittsburgh, we'll start with Brazeau. I think it's tough to overlook him after he had a hat trick on Sunday. But outside of that explosion, his post-injury production has been pretty quiet. Just 6 points in 11 games, 5 of those being goals, though, since he returned in early December. So, again, he's still flashed the upside, right? He has a hat trick yesterday. He has 5 multi-point outings this season. And he brings 2 hits per game in December. So I like him as a banger league stream, probably one of the best banger league streams this week. Obviously you can't expect multi-goal performances every night, but he's had a pretty solid season, offers a nice floor with the hit production. And then he obviously can get on the score sheet. He's shown that ability. Hasn't been as great with Malkin out, but he still scored a hat trick, still has 5 goals in the month of December. So he can certainly get there. Then there's Ben Kendall at 3% rostered. He snapped a 5-game pointless drought with an assist yesterday, but it's really hard to endorse him without that power play one time. 8 of his 15, so over half of his production this season has come on the man advantage. And it's been a man advantage that's been so good this year that when you're on power play one like Mantha is, it makes you the priority stream. When you're not, I just don't trust Candell's 5v5 production enough. So again, only a stream in the deepest of formats if you're desperate this week. And honestly, I would maybe stream Tommy Novak ahead of Candell this week. He's just 1% rostered. Again, a deep league stream here, but he's woken up a little bit as of late. 9 points in his last 13 games, and most of his production comes at 5v5, which makes him a little bit more reliable than Candell if you're digging deep or in your super deep league. So that being said, in most leagues, I think there's stronger options available to you on the wire this week, but in those deep formats, you could potentially look at Tommy Novak this week. Now let's get to the Florida Panthers. They play 4 times. And like I said at the start, with just 11 games on Monday, you might be able to get all 4 games out of them this week, which would be huge. If not, their light night slate is pretty decent. They've got the Canadiens, they've got the Rangers, and they've got the Avs. So 2 pretty good matchups, 1 not so great matchup. So hopefully you can get them in all 4 games this week. If not, the 3 options are fine. Anton Lundell would be the top option, but again, he's 47% rostered here, so the chances of him being available to you are probably not great. He has cooled off slightly, which is 1 point in his last 4 games, but still has 10 points, 6 goals, 4 assists in his last 14 games. His peripherals offer a reliable floor. He has 2.6 shots on goal and 1.4 hits per game during that stretch. He's got strong underlying numbers at 5v5. So that all just suggests that more production probably coming here for Lundell. Probably going to pick up the pace a little bit after a bit of a down spell last week or last 2 weeks. He's rostered again in 47% of leagues. So the availability is somewhat limited, but he is a top tier stream this week where he is available. And he's been really reliable this year. He has a point in 23 of 37 games so far. That is a 62.2% of the time he's picking up a point. So pretty reliable option for Lundell. The secondary options, more banger league targets than anything. We'll start with Mackie Simiskevich at 5% rostered. Continues to be a great banger league stream. Over his last 9 games, he has 6 points, 1 goal, 5 assists, but he's averaged 2.6 shots on goal, 4.0 shot attempts, and 2.4 hits per game. So brings great category coverage and great category floor, and doesn't have the most offensive upside, but he's flashed decent production offensively over the last 2 seasons, and he can chip in a couple points here and there. Eetu Luostarinen might be the better play than Simiskevich at 2% rostered. Very similar profile, but probably a little bit steadier just because the usage. He's a guy that might play 19, 20 minutes on any given night. Simiskevich maybe closer to 16, 17. He does get up there. The Panthers' ice times do fluctuate quite a bit, so Simiskevich can certainly get to Luostarinen's ice time on any given night, but Luostarinen's is a little bit more reliable. Now, his shot volume is lighter, just 1.5 shots on goal per game, but the hit volume is nearly identical with 2.3 hits per game. But the offensive production has been much better from Luostarinen than it is Simiskevich. 16 points in his last 22 games, just 4 goals, but still 16 points in 22 games is a 50-point pace, widely available. Better offensive production than his fellow winger in Florida. So I think I would lean Luostarinen, but I don't mind Simiskevich either. But again, more deep league or banger league pickups than anything. And then we're going to close out the show with the Montreal Canadiens because they've basically got one option this week. They have 3 late night games as well, but the matchups are brutal. They're in Florida, they are in Carolina, and they are in Dallas. Really tough road swing. They do have the St. Louis Blues on Saturday. You're probably not going to be able to get them in your lineup that night. So the 3 late night games, brutal matchups. They have basically one player worth considering. And again, more of a banger league consideration than anything. And it's Zach Bolduc, left wing, right wing eligible, 15% rostered on Yahoo. It's a prime opportunity, right? Like, he's on the top line with Suzuki and Caulfield. The production just hasn't really been there despite having really, really nice usage. Just 5 points, although 4 of them are goals in 14 games in December. That said, there are signs of life because all 4 of those goals came in his last 8 games. And during that stretch, he's averaged 2.0 shots on goal, 3.5 shot attempts, and 2.8 hits per game. So the volume, the category coverage, really, really good for Bolduc this week. He's also averaging over 16.5 minutes per game. So the role, the usage, they remain solid for a streamer with strong underlying metrics. And obviously, we just talked about his floor. I think he's had some big games this year, mostly early, but he's still skating with Caulfield and Suzuki, which gives me the hope that he can finally kind of convert on this opportunity. He's also on the top power play units. Like, there's a lot going for Bolduc. It just hasn't turned into as much production as you'd hope, but as a banger league stream, it's great, right? You can pick him up. He's going to provide a nice floor, and the offensive potential is there. Again, the one downside with Bolduc and basically anybody you might consider streaming from the Montreal Canadiens is just the schedule. It's just far from ideal this week. So, yeah. And again, like, you can click on the Chicago Blackhawks. You can consider them. I just don't think it's necessary. I mean, this roster is super duper thin right now. So I'm not going to go there. If you want, you know, they do have 3 late night games, but I think I've given you enough players that are super low owned that they're going to be available on your wire. I mean, I'm in a competitive 12-team league, and I just picked up Jackson Blake. I just picked up Logan Stankoven this morning. So if those two are available to you, they are the number one options. It's not close. Nantha would probably be second, and then you get into a bunch of banger league streams. So hopefully you added Blake last week when I recommended him. Hopefully Stankoven's still available in your leagues. Available in 79% of leagues so far, or still, excuse me. So that's going to do it for this edition of the DFO Fantasy Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we'll be back tomorrow, and then we've got Waiver Wire Wednesday with Beebs Bondy on Wednesday, and then we'll go over the best weekend streaming targets with Dylan Berthume on Thursday. So another great week of shows here on the DFO Fantasy Show. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching this video. If you want more great fantasy hockey and betting content from myself, Carter Hutton, Matthew Barnaby, and the rest of the DFO analysts, make sure you subscribe to the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel today and never miss a minute.